This is a candidates forum that's co-hosted by both the Antioch and the Leafblad Township Republican clubs. Let's do this first. If you can join me, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you again. This is being co-hosted by both Antioch and Leafblad Township Republican clubs. I would like to recognize a few folks that helped put this event together. First, the president of the Antioch Township Republican Club, Steve Bishop. Steve, wave. The Republican Township Chairman from Antioch Township, Lillian Galanka. Lillian, stand, take a bow. From Leafblad Township, the Republican Club Secretary and Treasurer, Betty Burns. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dominic Martirano. I'm both the Leafblad Township Republican Club President and the Township Chairman. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Of course, we planned this to be on the coldest day of the year so far. So blame Steve for that. He wanted to choose this date. From 7 to 8 o'clock tonight, here's what we're hoping to do. We've got 4 candidates here for Illinois State Senate District number 31, and we will give you an opportunity. We will be passing out index cards, and we encourage you to write down questions that I can ask these candidates. I'd like to encourage you to stick to the issues. This is not a CNN debate. This is not Fox News debate, but I see as people are filming, who knows what'll end up on YouTube, so be careful what you say. But really, I'd like to have everybody focus, and particularly the candidates, focus on the issues. We will screen the cards to make sure that these are questions that all the candidates can answer. The forum, we've done this before for the 8th Congressional District and other events. It's pretty simple. We'll give the candidates a couple of minutes, 3 minutes for an opening statement each. Then we'll start asking questions. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer the question. We'll rotate who goes first, and then the person who answers the question first gets the last 1 minute rebuttal at the end if they want to use it. We'll go through, we'll continue to ask questions, and then at the end, close to 8 o'clock, we'll give them each a 2-minute wrap-up. And then from 8 o'clock to 9, you're going to have 3 candidates for Lake County State's Attorney's Office here. All right? Before we get started, really quickly, just want to recognize the candidates that are here. Besides the gentleman sitting up front, I have Jerry Dietz, who's running for clerk of the circuit court. Jerry, could you stand and wave? I have Keith Bryn, also a candidate for the clerk of the circuit court. Keith. I have, so far, a couple of the candidates for state's attorney. Brian Winder. Brian. I have Steve Newton running for the office of coroner. I have Tom Weber running for Lake County Board District number 3. And Mike Mearheim also running for state's attorney's office. And I see Mr. Jim Mitchell back there also running for County Board District number 3. Sign up and I'll catch you later on. All right, so let's get started. We're going to have Betty and Steve go around and hand out and pick up index cards. But let's start with the 3-minute opening speeches. If you don't mind, we'll go from left to right. So, Joe, you're up.
Thank you, Dominic. Good evening, everybody. I'm Joe Neal. I am running for State Senate. First, I want to thank Dominic and Lillian, Steve, and the Republican clubs for putting this on tonight. I grew up in a Republican family, grew up my whole life helping out with different campaigns. I know what kind of level of effort this kind of thing takes, so thank you all for putting this on. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of you in the room tonight, but for those of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Wadsworth. I went to Warren Township High School. went to the College of Lake County after that, before going down to Southern Illinois University and earning my Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering. After that, I went out and I earned my Master's degree in Transportation Engineering from the Illinois Institute of Technology. For the past 20 years now, I've been working on roadway, traffic, and infrastructure problems as a civil engineer throughout communities in Illinois and Wisconsin. About 3 years ago now, I was proud to be commissioned as an officer in the Navy Reserves in the Civil Engineering Corps. Since that time, they put me to use. I've been proud to serve my country. I've been to Nicaragua, where I worked on water well projects for communities throughout the western part of the country for a humanitarian service mission. I've been to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where I was the officer in charge doing some roadway work and some improvements there. And then just this last June, I returned from Iraq, where I was the officer in charge of a 56 CB detachment that took care of about 30 camps throughout the country for Special Operations Forces. So now I'm back, and we have some problems here in Illinois that I want to address and I want to fix, that I think are a very serious threat to our way of life. We're spending too much, we're taxing too much, and we're borrowing too much, and we are chasing jobs out of this state. And I want to go down and represent you in Springfield to fix these problems. Thank you very much, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Michael White.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I lost my voice last night, so I'm still working on it. Thank you for being here tonight for the great state Senate debate, as well as thank the Antioch and Lakeville Republican clubs for putting together tonight's event. Again, my name is Michael White, and I'd be honored to have your vote for the race. I was born and raised right here in Illinois. I lived in Lake County with my wife Dawn, son Kai. We've been here for about 13 years in Lakeville. I served in our nation's military for over 20 years in the Illinois National Guard and Active Duty Air Force. I've been a substitute teacher, a business manager, a business owner, and an entrepreneur. Currently, I help small business with their branding and marketing. On the campaign trail, people ask a lot of questions. One of the probably more interesting one is, why in the world would you want to run for office in the state of Illinois? And that's a great question. It's because we need new people in office. We need people that are not a part of the status quo, that are not a part of this political class. I'm going to Springfield to be your advocate for a balanced budget. That means we don't spend more than what we bring in. I'm going to be your advocate for small business and job growth, because if the driving engine for economic growth is always about small business, then why isn't government paying attention to small business needs and concerns and addressing those needs? I'm going to Springfield to be your advocate for individual wealth, because the more money you keep in your pocket is the more money you get to invest in your community and in your children's education. Again, my name is Michael White. I'm running for state senate for the 31st district. I'm going to Springfield to be a part of the solution, not to be a part of this political class. Thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you. Lennie Jarratt.
Thank you, Dom and Steve and Lillian and Betty, for hosting this event here, having us here so we can come answer questions for you. I'm sure we have some questions we'd like to ask too. I'm Lennie Jarratt, and I'm running for state senate. This past fall, everybody knows what was happening, and Susie Smith has been a great person in Lake County and has served this county well. I found out she was going to be dropping out and not running for re-election. I also found out that the state senate Republicans were trying to handpick the candidate. I didn't take that too kindly, so I decided to run. I'm not the son of a GOP power broker. I haven't sat on the county board. I've been working grassroots around here for the last 7 years, fighting for you, fighting for lower taxes. In fact, I led the effort in Grays Lake School District, and they got them to refund almost $7 million back to the taxpayers because they didn't properly issue bonds. So, you're looking for people to go to Springfield. You like the status quo? There's other people you can vote for because I'm not going to be status quo. I'm going down there and I'm going to fight for you. One thing I keep hearing with all my activity stuff around the county with the school districts and stuff is you can't win. You can't win this battle. I've already won because I have altered their behavior. They no longer do the same things anymore. And I plan on doing the same thing in Springfield. Go down there, hold everyone accountable, hold the politicians accountable, both parties, because we have to end the backroom deals. There's no excuse for not fighting for the people. We have to start having the government support the families and the citizens and not continuing to grow the size of government anymore. So recently, I had the opportunity to go up to Zion. One of the community members called me because the teachers were getting ready to go on strike up there. I went up there, we held a town hall to talk about education, and we reached out to everybody, both sides of the aisle. In fact, Joe's sister actually came to the event. We sat and talked, and she asked for information how to help. We helped them. They got activated. The strike ended in 4 days. When the second town hall came from the citizens of Zion, the teachers went in there the next day. They settled the contract. It's all about working together, and we can work together but still hold everyone accountable to make sure they are doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lennie. Larry Leafblad.
Thank you, and thank you for coming out tonight, because this is, I think many of us would rather be sitting wrapped in a blanket watching Hannity or something like that. But my name is Larry Leafblad. Many of you know me. I put a bio on the table back there, just basically to give you an outline for those of you who don't know me. But I spent 16 total years on the county board with Bob Neal and others. And for many years, I have been involved in media. Lakeland Publishers, newspapers published the Antioch Reporter and Lakeville and all those things. Worked at WKRS for 10 years, ended up in part ownership of both WKRS and WXLC. By the way, say habla español now for WKRS, which kind of makes me feel sick with my stomach, but that's all right. But the reason I bring that up is because I go back and I look at this position and who has held this position over the years. And I go back to Bob Colson, Senator Bob Colson, and you go back to John Conley, who has held this position. You go then to Bill Morris, who and I worked together with the news department at WKRS, followed by Larry Leonard, and then succeeding Larry was Adeline Jo Harris. So the size of this position is really measured by the people that we are following. And one of the things that I promise to you is you know how I stand. I'm standing pretty solid on conservative values. But what I promise to you is that I promise to be your leader in this Senate district. Because what's important to us right now is, yes, we have to keep this seat, which is the whole idea that I got in the first place. But not just to keep the seat, but it's to nurture everyone in the 31st district who desires to take public office, whether it's the mosquito control board or a village board or a school board or a county board or whatever they're going to do. I pledge to you as your senator that I will lead like you expect a leader to lead in Springfield. But I'll also step in and help you, good Republicans, make positions, get into positions so that we can make things change in Illinois. Things are going to change a little bit in November, but the big changes are going to happen in 30 months from now. When we get rid of the governor and we get rid of Mike Madigan, and I ask you to help me do that. Thank you.
All right, great. We're going to start going through questions. Candidates have 2 minutes, and the first candidate who answers a question will get a 1-minute rebuttal after everybody's got a chance to answer. Real quickly, I missed, I recognized candidates, but I did not recognize some of our elected officials here. So also tonight with us, we have State Rep Joanne Osmond, Antioch Township Supervisor Dia Venturi, and Lake County Board District Member Linda Peterson. once you're elected officially, I'll sit together and make it nice and easy for you. We're going to go in alphabetical order based on last names. So it's going to be Lennie, and then Larry, and then Joe, and then Michael White. So Lennie, you're up first. It says, what are we going to do to bring jobs to Illinois? What are you going to do? And be as specific as possible.
First thing we have to do is we have to repeal the tax increase from last year. Last year, from the time the tax increase passed, we've lost 82,650 jobs in Illinois, and over 61,000 people are now unemployed. So like 20,000 people either stopped looking or they've moved out of state. I personally know 5 families that have moved to Texas right now because of the jobs. There's jobs in Texas, there's no jobs in here. Businesses are moving across the state line to Wisconsin. Talked to a gentleman the other day. He wants to keep his business here in Antioch. He's got 75 employees, but the taxes are killing him, and if something isn't done soon, he's going to have to move. He can move 1 mile and be in Wisconsin and lower his taxes. Taxes are the biggest killer right now of jobs. Second thing is regulations. We have to go lower the regulations, the fees in Illinois. That's how Blagojevich gets around his not raising taxes. He just raised every fee in the book, and it just keeps continuing hammering on businesses so they have to leave. We have to redo that, build the environment back so there's a stable way here that the businesses know they know what their costs are going to be in the future. They can grow and they can expand, and they know how to do it. They know how to do it. Businesses are great. Government cannot pick winners and losers. They just can't. This free market, capitalism, businesses, we know what's best for our community needs, and we know how to create businesses. I'm a small business owner myself, and we have to get the government off our backs, and the biggest thing to do that is to repeal the taxes that Quinn passed last year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lennie's right. And the thing that's important for us all to know is that every problem in the state of Illinois is tied to those 2 issues of debt and borrowing. So yes, I will support and vote to repeal the tax on employers. I would also support and vote for the tax to be repealed on the personal side, because things are bad, things are tough, and taking that money out of circulation and giving it to government means it chokes off the ability for business to grow. Therefore, it chokes off the ability for businesses to hire. Therefore, it chokes off tax base, which is the money that gets paid to the state. It's a vicious circle that we're going to have to pay a price for a while. But down in Springfield, they're going to make some changes this year, so it may be different one year from now. But I'm here to tell you that the changes are going to have to be made, and we'll see what gets done. But it has to come off, because while that money is being sucked out of the economy now, and forcing people to move, and forcing people to sell their homes, and forcing to do these things, we have to bite the bullet and do some tough love and get things going. They have to drop that, and they also have to revamp workers' comp completely. It's the other part of business that's driving people out of the state. Those 2 things will help the economy.
Yeah, these guys are spot on. I mean, workman's comp causation is one of the bigger issues with workman's comp right now. That's got to be addressed and fixed. Repeal the income tax increase. That's got to be done, or not the income, the business tax increase. But one suggestion that I have as well to help companies to provide them incentives for getting new jobs in this state would be to provide a $1,500 tax credit for any new employee that a company puts on the books. Now, what people don't understand, too, is that 90% of our workforce in this state is small businesses. The large businesses like Sears, CME, Caterpillar, they're able to send down lobbyists, lawyers, to go down and fight for them and negotiate tax breaks and give them the ability to stay here in this state. Now, I don't begrudge those companies for doing that, if they can afford it. But the small businesses, they can't afford to have somebody go down and negotiate special deals for them. Well, I'm going to be your representative, and I'm going to be their representative to even the playing field for all of them. So I look forward to going down and representing you and the small business guy and be their representative and their negotiator. Thank you.
As I said in my opening, small business growth is the economic engine that's supposed to get us out of this recession, you might say. Property taxes are killing families. They're killing small business. Plain and simple. And until the state itself straightens out its finances and balances that budget, we are going to continue on the downward slope. Because as they make the cuts, they're going to push them on the townships and the cities, and their property taxes will continue to go up. So they have to re-engineer government. We have to re-engineer the things we're doing in Springfield, the services we provide. Because the idea of cutting in Springfield to just raise our taxes on the local government only increases our property taxes and hurts small business. Small business is also struggling because of regulations placed on it by everything from townships when it comes to to signs, to how traffic pulls in if you wanted to open a new place. There's just tons of regulations. And if we don't pay attention to the small business needs and help small business grow just from the fact that property taxes and how to start a business in Illinois, they're going to steer clear of here. And you have a government in Springfield that doesn't balance its budget. Business won't come here because they don't trust it. I don't trust Springfield. So thank you.
Speaking of property taxes here and bills in Springfield now, the average of them being behind their bills is 7 months. You look at a list, I saw a list yesterday, looking through that list, Antioch District 34, Antioch 117, the Grace Lake School District, Lake County, all of them, there's millions of dollars that are owed to them by the states right now. Every year in December, they go and raise their levy because they know the state's not paying its bills. So the levies are just a state-sanctioned tax. It just keeps putting the burden on the local level because the state will not do what it should be doing to take care of the debt problem that they have. They have a spending problem. They don't have a revenue problem. They have plenty of tax revenue coming in. They just can't control their spending. You hear them talk about cuts. They're not cutting anything. They're continuing to raise their budget every single year. They're only cutting their growth. And we're paying for it, and businesses are paying for it. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is titled Education Funding. It says, taxes are rising on private property owners to fund education. Do you have a plan to maintain education funding while lessening the individual tax burden on residents? And Larry, we'll start with you.
I start with the easy one. Right? That's a tough question, to say the least, and a good one. The levy that school districts apply to your property tax bill is something that there is highly regulated by the tax cap, as we all know. But I'm not sure that the solutions that are being offered by the state are any real solution right now. Basically because sometimes the school aid really drags behind and causes a lot of problems within the schools in terms of being able to make them go. And so what I would suggest is that I really favor moving the power of the centralized Illinois power in school districts back into the school districts themselves, to the school boards themselves, so that they can be more directive of what they do, because they're the biggest chunk. They're 70%, in most cases, they're 70% of what you pay in property taxes. So it's a big deal. So I encourage that and would support a more decentralized school taxing system.
Right now, most of our problems can be traced back to a couple of things, and that's jobs and our budget and the deficit. If we get more jobs back in the state, we expand our tax base, helps our revenue streams, get more people to share in the burden of our deficit. The problem with as Lennie said, we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. But if we can't get a handle on our financial situation, we can't be funding the things that the state is supposed to be funding, such as education. The state is not making its commitments on what they're supposed to be funding. So we have to fix our financial problem so that we can help the school boards pay our fair share of the education, for education. So I think that's the main thing. Now, when the state is not paying their fair share for education, it kind of forces some of these school boards and these local municipalities to raise the property taxes to help cover some of these strains, some of these shortfalls. So from the state Senate side, from my position, we got to fix the deficit, we got to fix our finances so that we can help better fund what we're supposed to be funding for the school systems.
Thank you. I want to share something with you. I had a cold, so I figured I might need graphics today. So I want to share with you, we have a pension problem that is hurting education. This is the highest. We have 5,294 retirees receiving over $100,000 worth of pensions in the state. This one here is from Woodland School District, $206,000 and some odd cents. This is the problem we have to solve. We have ridiculous pension problem, and the median income for Lake County is about $76,000. So until the state starts to truly address the pension issue, there will never be enough money for school. Next, I have another graphic. I don't have it with me right now, but I'll bring it up. But the college, I think it was $2 billion will be going towards college retirement, and only $1.5 million goes to maintaining our colleges and student aid. So the discrepancy is already there. Retirement is taking over the system. It'll continue to take over the system. That's why everything is being pushed back down on the counties and local level. So until, again, the state starts to solve this issue, we will never solve the problem. Thanks.
Education is the reason I'm actually up here, because that's what I started doing 7 years ago, was fighting a school referendum. So I've researched a lot of the school issues and some of the spending problems and stuff there. A lot of schools do have spending problems. A lot of it does come from the money's not coming from the state, so this burden's getting shifted over to the local taxes. One thing you have to remember, there is a lot of unfunded mandates that come from both the federal government and the state government. A lot of these unfunded mandates, many of you don't know, are actually pushed by the NEA and the IFT. So the teachers' unions are pushing unfunded mandates onto the schools, and then the schools have to deal with how to fund that and how to pay for that. One thing we can do to help that is stop these unfunded mandates, go through them. We can see the majority of them aren't needed. Majority of stuff with schools are common sense. The next thing we have to do is, right now the power of the money is in the hands of the bureaucracy. It is not in the hands of the parents and the school board. And we have to change the system to empower the parents so there begins to be a true competition in the schools. When Milwaukee started their system where they allowed students to be able to go to different schools and actually have a choice where their kids go to school, the test scores went up. And those 20% of kids, they got to choose another school. The funny thing is that most people haven't read about, the 80% of the kids that were left in the other schools, their test scores also increased. The competition helped both segments of the population. It did not just help the kids that were able to go and have their choice. So the system has to be about choice, empowering parents over the bureaucracy, because that's the way you're going to start controlling costs and lower the costs. Milwaukee also, their school cost up there has also been able to decrease the cost of their education up there as well, and that will start taking the burden back off of the property taxes.
I get my 1 minute comeback. But I'll tell you, I guess it's my visual aids go on there. We have to get government down to here to meet the size of the revenue. We don't have the government or the revenue come up to meet the size of government. Nothing happens anywhere in the state of Illinois, whether it's our school boards here in Lakeville or Antioch or Grays Lake or wherever you are. Nothing gets fixed. It's the economy. I don't want to say stupid because people say, hey, he called us stupid. No, but it's the economy, stupid. We got to get that fixed first. And when that is fixed, all of our attention has to be fixed on getting this thing into line. Cutting the size of government down to match what's coming in, number one. I'm not asking for a balanced budget. I'm asking for things to be cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. Sensibly, not across the board, but sensibly, drill down deep, and then, and only then, will these things begin to solve themselves.
Thank you. Next question, and Joe, you're up first. This says, what can you do about the budget crisis in Springfield? There's a budget crisis? More specifically, how will you, if elected, address pension issues?
Pension is a big problem, obviously. It's no secret. Got $85 billion of unfunded mandated pensions right now. There's a lot of things we can do to fix pensions. One is we can take the vesting periods. They have 5, 10, 15-year vesting periods. Make a minimum of 20-year vesting periods. Let's get rid of the automatic 3% COA, cost of living increases. As far as the overall budget, we took in about $33 billion of revenue last year, and the governor's budget came in at about $34.5 billion. So that's just another $2 billion or so that they tacked onto our deficit that's already skyrocketing out of control. We have to get a handle on this budget. We got to stop borrowing. Basically, we have a balanced budget amendment in this state, but what they're allowed to do is take what they're going to borrow and use that to call balancing the overages that we're spending. That's got to stop. What I suggest is that we base our next year's budget on previous year's actual income levels. No more accounting for borrowing. Now, to put the budget in perspective, we'll have to cut spending 6 or 7% across the board over the next 5 years in order to balance the budget and get rid of our $10 billion deficit. So that means that there's going to be a lot of tough choices that have to be made, and I suggest that we go back 5 years and look very carefully at all redundant programs and look at very seriously cutting any of those programs. If we didn't need these programs the first 190 years of our state's existence, then chances are we don't need them now. Thank you.
You heard a little bit about pension reform. We've recently in the Tribune about a union lobbyist who worked one day as a substitute teacher is going to be collecting around $100,000. Also, that individual got 2 of those lovely legislative scholarships from someone in Springfield. The average teacher gets about $50,000 for their retirement. It's obviously we have a pension problem, and I think that pension problem starts with the candidate. What can one person do? I pledge to you that I will not take a pension from an elected office, period. I've already saved you money tonight. Now, the other candidates are willing to take this pledge too. I've saved you money even if you don't vote for me tonight. So, here it is. They're more than welcome to sign it. This is my pledge to you. We do have a pension problem, and it's going to take someone who is not in the system to solve it, I feel. We have too many people in the system collecting the pension. What is the incentive for the guys in Springfield to take it? What is the incentive for them to reduce it? There is no incentive. That is why we're in the process we are. You mentioned a little bit about finance. The state has now overdue bills of $5 billion, and instead of borrowing, what they do is they borrow from funds. And they recently in January extended that to the year. So now they can borrow more out of those funds, and I can't remember how many million. I think it's around $500, $300 million they borrow from the funds. So even though they're not getting loans, they are borrowing from funds that they have to pay back, I think, within 18 months. So there is borrowing taking place.
Yes, we have a major pension problem here in Illinois. One of the things you'll see if you start looking at some of the contracts and stuff that public employees get, a few years ago, they had passed a law because there was pensions going up. The last 4 years people would work, they'd get 20% bumps every year for the last 4 years to inflate their pension. Now that's been limited down to 6. So now it's called the 666 plan, actually. So the last 3 years, public employees, for the majority of them, are getting 6% each year. So their pensions are getting inflated. That is no way. That is unsustainable, and we need to end that. Yeah, I think you want to talk about term limits. The easiest way to have term limits is also end the pensions for all legislators. If they don't have a pension, they're not going to want to stay there forever. That's one thing you can do. The budget problem we have here is all related. A lot of it's related to the pensions. Shortly here, the pension is going to be more than 50% of the funding for education. The funding for education is going to have to start shrinking because the money's going to have to go to the pensions. We have to figure out a way to change the pensions now. We have to protect the pensions of the people that are there now, because if we don't change the pensions for the new employees coming in, it is going to start affecting the pensions of everybody that's getting pensions now. And so we have to do something. This is getting out of control. When you start looking at the budgeting systems around here, you'll hear the number $27 billion passed around for the general fund. That's the part that has to get balanced every year. It's balanced by cash accounting. There is no true government, generally accepted accounting practices. So when they add a pension on or something, that's never added until the bill is actually paid. So any business that brings in over $5 million a year, if they use government accounting, they go to jail. They'd be out of business. Government does not use normal accounting practices, and that's something we have to end. And you'll have to notice that the real budget is actually $53 billion, which is not counting the general accepted practices. For the general budget, it's only $27 billion, and that's the part they use for the balanced budget part.
Do we get all that? And I think everybody does get it that we've got a big problem. And there's no other way around it but what we were talking about earlier, which is we've got to cut things. I was listening to Dan Rutherford the other night in November when he was speaking to the Central Committee, and he said he explained how he drilled down in his office and made those what seemingly were little bitty changes in savings, and how they all mounted up. And my feeling is that in order to get the pension things squared away, we first of all have to have a cash flow working right, just like in your business. In order to pay the driveway, you have to have a cash flow to do that. It's crumbling. We know we're losing cars in the potholes, but we still have to get this fixed. Well, what Dan Rutherford did is something I think should be done in every department, in every place in the state, at every level, up and down, in and out, before we even begin. One of the reasons why I don't like across-the-board cut is because across-the-board cut is a lot easier to do than to actually find out what's obsolete, what's not working, what's redundant, and all those things. Those types of things. I used to work for a guy by the name of Roger Kaplan, who owned the radio stations I worked for. Real Jewish and one of the toughest guys I've ever seen in my whole life. And matter of fact, I was just in communication with him today about that changeover in WKRS, and I said, if I was governor of the state of Illinois, I'd give you $1 million. And I know that you could find $100 million worth of waste. And that's the truth. That's what we have to do. We have to go down deep. Because when that starts to make sense, when those are being run more efficiently and as tightly as they possibly can, then we can really get to the real serious problems. We all know the stories about the egregious pensions. I'm married to a retired teacher, and it's not $50,000. Trust me on that one, okay? But she has a pension, and she earned it. And this is a situation where most of the teachers are not involved in all this headline-making stuff. There are the people who've had their pension taken away from them by raids by the legislature.
I do agree that the pension system for legislatures does have to change. There is no reason that if I go in and serve a 2-year term, I get a nice pension, a nice fat pension for the rest of my life. So I do agree that should definitely change. Now on the budget side, I did miss one major thing, and maybe people didn't want to step on this third rail necessarily, but Medicaid. Medicaid is also a very major cost in our state deficit that we're not able to fund completely. If we simply bring Medicaid eligibility requirements to national standards, you're looking at major savings there. We're talking about $1 billion, $1.2 billion in savings just by simply doing that. So thank you.
And think we've got time for one more question from the group before we give them their 2-minute closing. Hopefully, all these candidates can stay afterwards. They can listen to the second forum, and then afterwards, for those who want to stick around, hopefully we can have an informal meet and greet over cookies, pop, and water. So let's see, Michael, you're up, right? Boy, Joe must have been looking at my cards. Medicaid is a major expense. How can the program be reformed? More specifically, what will each of you do around the issue of Medicaid?
I think what Joe said is probably the most accurate. I really have not a lot of knowledge on Medicaid, to be quite frank. But it's the type of attitude in Springfield that's been there forever. Anyway, we don't take care of anything. And so what's happening, recently they were talking about cutting, and that's where they were going to cut to have money to dump somewhere else. And it's into the pension system. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but if we don't balance the budget, and it includes Medicaid, it includes everything. We have to re-engineer and take a look at it. So I don't have a whole lot.
Yes, I have not done a whole lot of research into Medicaid myself either, but I do know some of the things about the healthcare system. We had the whole Obamacare debate, and some of the issues is a lot of the mandates and stuff that are going on are forcing the cost up, and that's forcing the cost of Medicare itself up too. And we need to reform the system where we can go to more of like a voucher system, being able to give the patients the ability to directly pick their doctors and handle it, because that's one of the problems we have with Medicaid is that the state is not paying their bills. You've got doctors that refuse to take Medicaid. You've got doctors, because they haven't gotten paid, have left the state. My personal doctor actually left the state and went back teaching because he could no longer afford to work here in Illinois. And so that's some of the things we have to do. There's ways to reform the system that aren't going to cost us as much money and keep increasing the cost. We've got to interject some free market ideals and give people, if we're empowering people again, instead of continuing to empower government bureaucrats.
My brother was 5 years younger than I, had a really bad stroke a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago now. And he's, was a decorated veteran, and he had to use Medicaid because he was out of work, out of home, and stuff. And I ended up as his power of attorney. And the experience of going through the Medicaid process is, what's the word? Debilitating? Maybe. But all I know is that these people, for the most part, are not mooches. These are people who are really falling on hard times. So the solution is, well, we got to fix the economy first. Okay, hope that sticks out in your head. But number two, there's a number of different creative ways that we provide this, like managed care and so on. There's different things that can be done. Much like Tom Cross's suggestion for the pensions, with the there's 3 different steps that he's proposing. There's also should be the same thing, some type of a managed care kind of a thing. And if we could somehow get it so that the people are treated with dignity, because it is a horrible feeling to be in there with a lot of people who are just the bottom of the earth. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of people, just like you and me, who are ending up on Medicaid right now because things are just that bad. And until we get things working in the state of Illinois, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we have to work on cutting the taxes on the employers, and cutting the taxes on individuals.
I'll just reiterate it since it's now an appropriate question, but if we just bring Medicaid requirements up to national levels, they're much more stringent in Illinois, then there's about $1 billion in savings right there. And again, we have to get a handle on our budget and our deficit, and get jobs back in this state to help before we can really start looking at all these other issues. So I guess I had another point here, and now I can't think of it, but yeah, education. Thank you. That's all I got. Thank you.
Believe it or not, I don't need anything. I forgot what I had done in my previous life. I worked for a speech therapy clinic, and I was a business manager. When I can tell you that these systems don't pay enough to operate the business. If it wasn't for regular insurance, the payments are late and they're low, and it's regular insurance that balances it out. It would almost be better if we took Medicaid and put it into the real insurance system, that they had their own insurance and the state supplemented it that way. It would probably help cut the cost from the state as well.
Well, we're coming to the home stretch. Each candidate will get a 2-minute closing. For those of you who are going to stay, and hopefully that's everybody, for the next forum of our 3 states attorneys candidates, if you'd like to start filling out questions for those candidates, that would be great. Again, Betty and Steve will be around and about. So let's go ahead and start with Lennie.
I want to encourage each of you to do your research on the candidates. Look at our backgrounds, look at our track records, see who is going to be the person that's going to go to Springfield and work the most for you. I mean, we have candidates up here, I know. If you want status quo, I'm not your person. I'm not going to be status quo. I'm going to go down there and actually give Dan Duffy a run for the furthest parking space in Springfield. You have to think about where do you want your kids working? What kind of state do you want? Do you want all your kids when they graduate? Do you want them moving to Texas? Do you want them moving to Florida? Do you want them moving to California? Well, California's losing jobs too, but Illinois is losing from 1995 to 2009 was losing one person every 10 minutes. Over $26 billion of taxable income left this state. We need somebody in Springfield that's going to fight for you. When I notified Senate Republicans that I was running, they called me back and said, we're dysfunctional down here, and you're going to be like a tugboat. And I'm like, that's fine with me. I know you're dysfunctional, but I know a tugboat is small but powerful, and they will push bigger ships into the direction they need them to go and get them back on course and get them into the dock where they need to be. And my request to you is look at me, research me, but I'm asking you to send a tugboat to Springfield.
All right, now let's see, what do I do there? Go-kart? But, it's really good to run with 3 good guys. I mean, this has been a good campaign. There's no mudslinging or anything like that, but of course we're not to the end of it yet, so we might get to it someday. But what I do want you to take away from this meeting, though, is that Larry Leafblad is the only one who was actually governed, actually legislated. And other than a precinct position, none of my opponents have held any type of elected office. And I think that's real important. In fact, this is a very critical time in Illinois history. We're on life support, and there's no question about that. This is no time to learn. I'm also, the only person who has run a business the size of 2 big multi-million-dollar radio stations, and I've held my own business together for about 23 years now, a marketing company. But we have to act now, and we have to act with positive action. I've been involved with the state legislature in one form or another since the 70s when we were doing the first constitutional convention, and I was in the news team. I had 16 years working with the state legislature from my position on the judicial and the legislature committees of the county. I don't know the ropes down there, but I do know significantly more than my opponents. I'm ready to hit the ground running in January. It's no time for on-the-job training in Springfield, and I deeply appreciate if you would consider joining my campaign and give me your support. Thank you very much.
Again, thanks, Dominic, and thank you to the Republican clubs for hosting this. I do want to thank my opponents for this very healthy debate. I did remember the thing that I forgot. I did want to bring up regarding Medicaid and the health care system in general is what we all got to get behind is getting Obama out of office so that we don't get those Obamacare jammed down our throat and get that repealed. So I hope we can all come together and fight for whoever the Republican nominee is for president. This is an important race too. We have to keep this a Republican seat. The Democrats are going to come at it strong. Melinda Bush is running unopposed. She's already building up a war chest. I'm ready, and I have already been working very hard to get to know the people in the district. I've been walking in this cold and in the snow, and I've been listening to you, and I hear your frustrations. And I want to go down to Springfield, and I want to voice your concerns. I want to fight for the small businessman. I want to fight to get control of the deficit and the spending. Please, I ask for your vote in March to send me down to Springfield. Thank you very much.
Well, Larry talked about this big company he worked for. I will say that Joe and I work for the largest organization in the United States, the United States military. And I worked on $1 million aircraft, so whatever that means. There's one candidate that is missing tonight, and that's the candidate we're all going against. That's Melinda Bush. And you have to consider what Melinda Bush is selling. She's selling the status quo. She's selling that she is not a career politician. Well, you have to compare us to her. Because in the general election, one of us is going against her, and it's one of us that must win it. I am a 20-year veteran, former substitute teacher and entrepreneur. I'm going to Springfield for you, for nobody else. I'm the only candidate tonight that said he would not take a pension. I'm still waiting. It's say what you mean what you say. That's all I have. Thank you very much for being tonight. I hope to have your vote and thrilled to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. These forums are pretty darn important. I'll give you a couple of dates I want you to keep in mind, and I'll mention this even after the next forum. February 9th is the first day to request ballots by mail. Early voting for this primary season is February 27th and March 15th, not that far away. March 20th is the general primary. No matter who you vote for, make sure you research the candidates. Most importantly, get out and vote. It's a privilege. Take advantage of that. One last piece of housekeeping. I noticed a couple of people in the audience. Steve Spouse, the Antioch Township Chairman. I also noticed McHenry County Board and a candidate for the Illinois House, new District 64, Bart Wheeler.